What's up, guy?
Bro,
You good?
I'm tired, man. I've had back-to-back meetings the whole week. Because
Put on your video.
Yo, can you guys hear me?
I think with us as Abantu, we're the original knowledge keepers of everything. If you think about it, we can't not look at what's going on in the world without understanding the overall spiritual dynasty of what everyone is doing. In terms of the Kush principles, the Kemetic principles, all of those original books, that's why they oppress us with the strongest. And because we're good, we forgive it, you know what I mean? Because ultimately we are the original template of a human being. We're the prototypical human being. You know what I mean? If no one is the fastest, strongest, smartest, I blind. It's just the way it is. In fact, that the way Lela already that video is, unfortunately, I have to be racist. Why? If you think about it, what are the odds? Everything ends with what are the odds? What are the odds? Even the KFC, abayidli KFC, and back then they had slaves working in the kitchen. So why is it that yonke into just doesn't make sense? It just doesn't add up. Whereas in everyday life,
Yabo, mina bethi into engiyengicabanga, you're right, but I agree with you. So if you think about it like this, dog, mabuka umlungu first umbuke njengomuntu olambile, bethi in a time where wayibuka abantu abamnyama becebile, living that life, dynasties, empires, colonizing the world, not just like in Africa, building civilizations all over the world, and mad literatures fundile. And then by the time umlungu comes out of those European mountains, the first book, even apparently, first European literature was after the 25th Egyptian dynasty, after the Nubian one. So, lumchita mesefika seyibukisisa uyibuka njengomuntu olambile dog yabo uzobamba inkunzi kahle kahle ucabanga njengesigebengu. So you're right, bro. He has to be racist. He has to be underhanded. You know what I mean? Firstly, he knows ukuthi he's a minority. He knows ukuthi we're bigger than him, smarter than him, faster than him. So this nigga is not at all gonna operate in any level of integrity because he doesn't have enough. And you're right about us being so forgiving. It's like we are still operating as the original people that were blessed with everything.
So are you saying then that racism is a product of self-preservation?
Looking at why do white people behave in the way that they do. You see, in concluding that it has to do, number one, with their minority status on the planet, their genetic recessive status, in that they could experience genetic annihilation, in that the overwhelming majority of people on the planet are black, brown, red, and yellow, and whites constitute fewer than 1/10 of the people on the planet.
initially, now it's become a tool. Sorry,
Yes, I agree with you, bro. I think it did start as a self-preservation thing, but it then ended up becoming a tool to keep the results of what it brought initially. You know what I mean? I want something, now I want to keep it. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing about sharing, bro, is that umuntu akafuna ukudedela. Uyasaba ukuthi ngeke ibuye futhi 10 yakhe ibhola ngeke ibuye futhi again. Yabo Leon. So
But
I think it's been used as a tool because of that, yeah.
so now here's my question, Gemanj. Because self-preservation is a good thing, Yabo, when does it now start to drift over to the evil side? You know what I mean? Because if racism, we are all agreeing that is rooted from a good place, you know what I mean? These people can see, look, they think they're at war because they kind of like inferior, maybe, like this is what I'm getting from you guys, right? So they think they're at war because they're inferior, and because they think they're at war, they steal or they take whatever that they need in order for them to appear like they are actually in control, and then keep things that way so that they can maintain control. So now my question is, when did it drift from being something good that I'm trying to like survive, and feed my family, to like, die, motherfuckers?
I'll tell you this, bro. You know that saying that says absolute power corrupts? I think absolute power corrupts absolutely. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but
I don't know
it's
the
about
saying, but yeah.
the saying. I think I don't know if it has absolutely at the end, but it says absolute.
No, it's that. It's
Yeah.
the power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Something like that. Yeah.
Yes. So this thing, Brian, I always say this, and this may be hard for people to understand, and maybe some people upstairs around white people, they thought that I'm a black supremacist, but this is how I see it. I was saying blame umlungu, bruh, but you blame Martina face. And then I also look at how a cycle goes, bruh. We were the abantu abamnyama, when you listen to that whole story of the Tower of Babel, or Nimrod were trying to build that shanty, trying to get to heaven, and then then put in everyone was speaking one language, working in unison. And then uNkulunkulu mix that language eyodwa wangena abantu banga understand ngase umuntu ufuna ifosholo wena wamnika ipi yabo leon. That's why even that image is always half built, half in the sky. Now, I think as black people were at that point, bro. We had so much power that it was corrupting us in our nature, and we had to be humbled. And umlungu naye, I think ukuthi situation efanayo, and I think ukuthi they go wrong when you've allowed that power to corrupt you absolutely. There was a time where you were doing it out of need. You saw people that were more developed. You saw education. That's why all the Greeks were coming into Egypt and into Nubia. That's why they're all Aristotle are all students of all Imhotep, because that's where the hub was of the world. But now once you've gained things and you built a society and you're growing, but now now at that point, you've gone straight away from trying to develop yourself. Now you're trying to dominate other people. Because maybe you fear which you've reached your cap, you can't actually grow for yourself. So now everyone else must stop growing so you can always be above them. So yes, racism may have started, and I don't want us to say which racism started as a way to self-preserve. I just think it started as a way where and it's like, fuck that, singababulala abantu. It's just a strategy. For me, I think it's an art of war.
Well, I think I was the first person to talk about white genetic annihilation in those terms, and that racism is ultimately a total system for white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation on a planet that has the genetics and the demographics that exist on third planet from the sun, which is planet Earth. So I was the first to put it in those terms, and my thesis has not been refuted. I would say that if my definition is understood, that racism, white supremacy is the fear on the part of people who classify themselves as white about white genetic annihilation and the concern for white genetic survival. This would therefore mean logically and specifically that the focus has to be on black males, because black people have the greatest genetic potential to produce the black pigment melanin, which gives all skin color. And since we have the highest level of genetically determined ability to produce this pigment that can cause white genetic annihilation, and it's only males who can impose sexual intercourse. And so the focus consciously, subconsciously has to zero in on the males.
Yeah, it's almost like if they can't kill us, they want to feminize us.
Say it again, Charlemagne. That's exactly right. The black male is being feminized. Have you seen these commercials? if you take this this medicine and you find yourself developing breasts, stop immediately.
I think you went too far if you start growing breasts.
That's the point. But it's a chemical reaction. Do you know?
Biological warfare. In biological warfare, according to Webster's dictionary, biological warfare is warfare involving the use of living organisms as disease germs or their toxic products against men, animals, or plants. You see in Africa. In biological warfare in Africa, you know that things like Ebola. Ebola, it's not a natural occurring disease. It was created in a laboratory. HIV and AIDS, it's not a disease that was created by God. No, HIV and AIDS was created in a military laboratory called Fort Detrick in America, Maryland. In the 1970s, it was requested by a white man called Henry Kissinger as part of his strategy, the American government, to depopulate third world countries. HIV and AIDS is a military weapon. It's a depopulation weapon. And it's working very effectively. And then another definition I want to go through is a chemical agent. What is a chemical agent? A chemical agent is a chemical which is intended for use in military operations to kill, seriously injure, or incapacitate men because of its physiological effects. And then the last definition is a biological agent. What is a biological agent? A biological agent is a microorganism or a toxin derived from it which causes disease in men, plants, or animals, or causes deterioration of material. My main focus here is on the use of chemical warfare in the effeminization of black males and the emasculation of black females. This is a phenomenon I refer to as the systematic chemical engineering of homosodomy. The system of white supremacy utilizes chemical warfare, biological warfare, psychological warfare to achieve its ultimate objective of white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation on planet Earth. Dr. Chick Anda Diop, long before Prof. Sobukwe said this quote, Chick Anda Diop said that there is only one race, and that is the African race. All others are mutations of the African. But in the evidence of Africa, white people are aware that genetically speaking, they can be exterminated by black people, and black males, black men are the #1 enemy of white supremacy. And so I'm saying here that today, white supremacy has now advanced to weaponize sex. Today, sex is a military weapon that is used to wage war in the process of black systematic destruction. And homosodomy is the last stage in this whole process. White supremacy is re-engineering society. They are now reconstructing a new society, you see? And they are using the chemical mutation of gender, you see, to achieve this. You must know, brothers and sisters, that you are living in what white people call the transhuman age. They say it's transhumanism. You must study about transhumanism, transhumanity. You see, that is why today you have things called transvestites, transsexuals, transgender, and all of those things. You see, P.W. Botha's parliamentary speech, 18 August 1985, Project Coast. I wish to announce a number of new strategies that should be put to use to destroy this black bug. We should now make use of the chemical weapon. Priority number one, we should not by all means allow any more increases of the black population, lest we be choked very soon. I have exciting news that our scientists have come with an efficient staff. I am sending out more researchers to the field to identify as many avenues as possible where the chemical weapons could be employed to combat any further population increases. The hospital is a very strategic opening, for example, and should be fully utilized. The food supply channel should be used. We have developed excellent slow-killing poisons and fertility destroyers. My scientists have come up with a drug that could be smuggled into their brews and effect slow poisoning results and fertility destruction. Working through drinks and manufacturing of soft drinks geared to the blacks, we could promote the channels of reducing their population, end quote. This was in 1985. Botha made this speech in front of his cabinet. He's talking about the development of chemical weapons, you see, for use against the black population. As attested by Botha, the South African government facilitated the development of its chemical and biological weapons under a top secret military program which was called Project Coast. Project Coast focused on the development of non-lethal agents, including illicit drugs such as ecstasy, menrex, cocaine, as well as medicinal drugs like they call it ketamine, isaxumethonium, nezinye. But these chemical compounds were prepared and studied, and both menrex and ecstasy were manufactured in large quantities and successfully weaponized into fine dust that could be released over crowds as a potential riot control agent. You will know that chemical weapons, tear gas, and grenades are part and parcel of chemical weapons. They are called non-lethal chemical weapons now, tear gases. As I'm saying, in 1994, this US Army, it's called the Wright Laboratory. They submitted a proposal which was called Harassing, Annoying, and Bad Guy Identifying Chemicals to the Pentagon. And this proposal sought to develop non-lethal chemical weapons that could be sprayed on enemy positions. The military documents show that $7.5 million US was requested to develop what they called the homosexual bomb, which involved discharging female sex hormones over enemy forces in order to make them sexually attracted to each other or to induce homosexuality and thus weaken them. So this is a military laboratory that is requesting the Pentagon for $7.5 million US to develop what they call a homosexual bomb to weaken the enemies. They wanted chemicals that affect human behavior so that discipline and morale in enemy units is adversely affected. And then the document says, I quote, "One distasteful but non-lethal example would be a strong aphrodisiac, especially if the chemical also causes homosexual asidlulekileyo ma-Afrika. 1997, this was in 1994. 1997, Dr. Tyrone Hayes, a professor of integrative biology at the University of California at Berkeley, was hired by a company called Syngenta. Syngenta is a company that produces pesticides. You see, pesticides, there are pesticides that are used to kill, you know, some of the pests, some of the insects, you know, even Ngola, you see, you know, all Ngola in your garden. So Syngenta produces this pesticide. So they wanted Dr. Tyrone Hayes to investigate the effects of this chemical, atrazine. That's the name of the chemical, atrazine. You don't have a picture? Yeah, atrazine. Just search for that picture, Son of the Soil. A herbicide that is applied primarily to corn crops all over the world. Dr. Hayes discovered that the herbicide has harmful effects on the endocrine system. In fact, Dr. Tyrone Hayes found that atrazine induced homosexuality in male frogs and could cause the same problems for humans. Males that were exposed to atrazine in a laboratory were both demasculinized or chemically castrated and completely feminized as adults.
Voyaged, Xolani, thank you.
Ndiyakubona ubuyintoni kodwa wena theni ungakho kuyivuma loo nto.